On today's show, we are kicking off our 2026 NHL draft coverage as we're breaking down the elite prospects top 32 September rankings, headlined by a potential superstar in Gavin McKenna.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USA scout over at Elite Prospects. And on today's show, we're going to be delving into the very work that I am doing at Elite Prospects as we're taking a glance at the 2026 NHL draft class. And just a little teaser, this is a very, very strong crop of players that blows the last couple of years out of the water in terms of the absolute depth of high-end talent, and it's headlined by Gavin McKenna, who is just an incredibly exciting player to keep an eye on here in the coming seasons. But before we jump into the rankings, where we're going to be breaking down the top 5, top 6 in the first segment, moving on to the middle of the pack in the second, and doing the back half in the quick fire style in the final segment, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel and download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So let's just get the episode rolling here because we have 32 players to introduce you to, and it's going to take a little while to get through all of these. And at number 1, there's absolutely no surprises. Gavin McKenna, the dynamic left winger from the Yukon, who's going to Penn State University in the NCAA this season and just absolutely blew the CHL wide open last year, scoring 2.3 points a game in his draft -1 season, and also establishing the longest ever point streak in CHL history with a ridiculous 54 consecutive games. He's so dynamic as a skater. That dynamism, the creativity, the adaptability on his feet just feeds his playmaking, his high-end handling skill, the ability to break down defenses with his anticipation, with his manipulative details. He's incredibly intelligent. He thinks the play at a faster pace than anyone else on the ice, and he just brings game-breaking skill with the puck on his stick. He's not the biggest guy in this draft class, and improving the physical impact and details is certainly going to be on the agenda for him in his freshman campaign at Penn State. But this guy has potential superstar written all over him and should be a really, really dominant player in college here this season. At number 2, we have another ultra-skilled winger, a pair of wingers to kick us off here in the rankings. Ivar Stenberg from Frölunda in the SHL in Sweden. He's just so skilled. He's incredibly elite in terms of his playmaking vision and offensive creation abilities. He could really be due for a historically productive draft eligible season at the SHL level, and has already been showing at the junior level in Sweden just how dominant he can be. He has a special level of instincts. His just intuition on the ice is second to none. He separates himself from the competition by incessantly scanning his surroundings. He has a very detailed mental map of the ice and the game around him. And in terms of player comps, think of a guy like Lucas Raymond, who's able to create through real fluidity, speed, dynamism, and skill as a playmaker, but who could probably use a little bit more refinement in the shooting department. But yeah, Ivar Stenberg's got it all. He's a very exciting player, and I cannot wait to see if he's able to separate himself as the clear number 2 guy in this class as the year unfolds. At number 3, we've got Keaton Verhoef, big 6'5" right shot defenseman from the University of North Dakota. Had a great campaign in the WHL this previous season. One of the most dominant defensemen in the entire CHL as a 17-year-old, with his high-end frame, real creative with the puck on his stick, a very intelligent puck-moving right shot defenseman who also, with that towering frame, with that range, is able to kill plays. But he's going to have to work a bit on his consistency and decision-making to really separate himself as a clear top 2 candidate in this class. But he's got every single tool a team could possibly wish for in a big right shot defenseman projecting for a top pair role in the NHL someday. At number 4, we have another right D, this time one who stayed in the WHL for this season, and that's Ryan Lynn from the Vancouver Giants, and he's potentially the best current defender on this list. He's really refined and polished, and he knows exactly how to tie up sticks and remove opponents from the play, and overall just be an absolute pest to play against in the defensive zone. His movement, the fluidity, the mobility, the speed with which he moves around the ice, his ability to just completely take players out of rushes with his feet is a truly special element in terms of blue liners in this year's draft class. And we're going to want to see him flash his one-on-one ability offensively a bit more frequently this season, but he's the complete package in terms of tools, and that high-end mobility should really make him a high draft pick, despite being a bit undersized. At number 5, we've got Ethan Belchitz, a left winger from the Windsor Spitfires in the OHL, who's a legitimate contender for second overall here this season. He could really become one of the fiercer power forwards in the NHL if he continues developing on his current trajectory. And he's not just physical, he's just mean. He's cruel on the ice. He goes out to bruise and be vicious against opponents, but he still brings real creativity and skill and deftness and grace with the puck on his stick in the offensive zone. And he's able to connect plays at a really high-end level, also execute deceptive passes as a setup man, but he's going to have to grow as a skater a little bit to open up more opportunities for himself offensively. But if he does, he could really rocket up the rankings all the way to number 2 this season. Then at number 6, we've got Tynan Lawrence of the Muskegon Lumberjacks, who's the captain there this season and a player I absolutely love watching play. He was the best player in the entire USHL last season already as a very young D-1. He's an August birthday, so keep that in mind in terms of the longer runway that he has relative to other players in this year's draft class, but he can absolutely shut down the opposition. The two-way details showed so much in the playoffs as he put the Lumberjacks on his back and dragged them all the way to a Clark Cup championship, but don't underestimate him offensively either. He's got speed, he's got skill, he's got vision and playmaking ability. He could really be the top center in this entire draft class, and in a draft class missing centers, that could lead him to being as high as a top 3 or top 4 selection come draft day. At number 7, we're heading to the WHL with Mathis Preston, one of the most dynamic players in this entire draft who can do everything with the puck on his stick offensively. And we saw this at the Linka Gretzky over the summertime with Team Canada, as his shooting skill, the precision, the pace he has with the puck, just really, really impressive. He's able to cut around defenders with real pace, deceive them. He can bounce off contact, dangle around sticks. He's very evasive and difficult to contain inside the O-zone, and his ability to land cross-ice passes and absolutely fire home chances is one of the best in this year's draft class, but he's going to have to refine his decision-making and play selection a little bit to allow his talents to shine even more. At number 8, we've got Daxon Rudolph, yet another right shot defenseman, this time from the WHL and the Prince Albert Raiders, and he's very mobile and rangy. That defensive radius he has is one of his bigger strengths, and he's able to just erase attacks in the neutral zone and step up aggressively. Crucially, though, he's able to balance the risk in terms of only stepping up when really necessary, rather than taking unnecessary risks and leaving himself chasing the play and getting passed by. The details with Daxon Rudolph are really one of the more impressive aspects of his game. Offensively, he's already able to jump up into gaps and engage opponents, passing the puck around defenders, and he should be able to cement himself as a top 10 guy if he's able to anticipate play a little bit more consistently. Then to wrap up this first segment, we've got a Lane Hudson-esque player in Xavier Villeneuve, an undersized left shot defenseman developing with the Blainville-Boisbriand Armada in the QMJHL, and he's already one of the most dynamic players in all of junior hockey. He's unstoppable when he's at his best. That shoulder shimmy that Lane Hudson is favored for, Xavier Villeneuve is able to execute really well as well. And I mean, developing just 20 kilometers north of the Bell Center certainly will also encourage Villeneuve to take a couple pages out of the Lane Hudson playbook, but his highlight reel is just obscene. We saw it in the QMJHL last season with that high level of manipulation and deception and dynamism from the blue line, but also for Team Canada at the Linka Gretzky, a player who really stood out as a standout in that tournament, and a guy that I think should really rocket up boards if he's able to continue his progression, especially also also on the physical robustness side of the game and the defensive details, which are going to have to improve. But if you draft him, it's going to be for the offense. That wraps things up, though, for our first segment here. In the next one, we'll keep things rolling with the middle of the pack of the first round. But first, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on either your phone or your laptop. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, it's made for you. You can link all of your accounts, see clear data visuals, get smart customization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever needing to touch a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, let's keep this episode rolling here in the second segment. And we've got a big name to kick things off, a player that some boards have as high as second overall, and that's Ryan Rubrick. Big left winger from the OHL and the Niagara Ice Dogs, who absolutely lit up the goal horn last season with 41 goals in his D-1 campaign. He's a very skilled shooter, has a heavy set of releases, and more than anything, has great goal-scoring instincts. That's what sets him apart. Between the circles and the hash marks, he's absolutely unstoppable. Throughout the past season, his motor, physicality, and playmaking all improved, but they still all need work. That consistency and engagement, closing down opponents, not being lackadaisical on the defensive side of the puck, and also looking for options in terms of passing the puck rather than just shooting by default. He can be a bit predictable and allows opponents that have a good game plan to just shut him out of the play for entire games at times, but he's going to have to really ramp up the intensity to establish himself as a clear top 5 contender this year. But as currently, we've got a couple question marks. At number 11, we've got another blue liner here with Carson Carrolls from the WHL and the Prince George Cougars. And the ability to play top pairing minutes as a D-1 as a 16-year-old last season in Prince George was just so impressive with Carrolls. He positions really well, has a great mental map of the ice, and he's able to position himself in just the best possible area to mitigate chances and to keep players from accessing the middle of the ice. He shepherds and angles opponents towards the boards. He's able to smother plays around those areas, but also step up at the blue line with a really good stick to disrupt plays and just stop entries before they even occur. It's a lot to like here with the clever playmaking ability as well with Carrolls. But if he's able to push his offensive skills to new heights, he could really be a top 10 guy come draft day. At number 12, we're heading to the NTDP for a blue liner this time with Luke Scherer, who is a really good player in terms of combining high-end mobility, high-end motor, and a real good baseline of skill. He's always thinking about the next play. He's constantly activating into gaps off the rush, and he powers past opponents. He's able to hold them off with an arm. The upper body strength is already really mature for his age, and the reads still have to improve. The consistency of execution can still be a question mark at times in the offensive zone, but the environment certainly comes into play here as well. There wasn't much cohesion or chemistry with the U17s last season, and Scherer was one of the most stabilizing pieces of that entire team. He checks almost every single box you could possibly want for a potential top 4 NHL defenseman. Now we're going for a guy who did also play in the USHL last season, but is transferring over to the Q this year. That's Yegor Shilov from the Victoriaville Tigres, who's a really, really physically engaged two-way center who thinks the game at a high-end level and is able to manipulate defenses with advanced deception and great playmaking instincts. He's got a bit of everything, and he's incredibly fun to watch. He can dominate entire shifts physically. He's a hard worker, constantly in the middle, in the thick of it, where you want him to be. And in a draft missing centers, this profile might go a whole lot higher than people might be expecting at this stage. At 14, we've got Chase Reed, right shot defenseman out of the Sioux Greyhounds, who scored a point a game in the OHL last season and could be one of the big risers continuously of this year's draft class. He has a booming shot and great puck carrying abilities. That skill of taking on opponents one-on-one, beating them, and also finding a balance of taking risks, trying to push the play and drive offense without necessarily risking possession all too recklessly. Chase Reed balances that way better than you would expect for a defenseman of his age. And with a particular focus on his defensive details and playmaking game this season, he could really, really ramp it up to being a top 10 caliber piece come draft day. At number 15, one of the higher profile players in this year's class, we've got Viggo Bjork, who just broke all the records in Swedish hockey in the junior ranks last season. He led the entire U20 Swedish league in points as a 16-year-old last year. And he's definitely the smallest player in our first round of our rankings here, but he's such a methodical creator who thinks and reads the game so much above his age would tell. And he adds to that a really great tactical foundation with his hands and feet, the precision of his puck touches, the quickness of his feet, the motor he plays with. There's a lot to love with this player, but scouts are certainly going to be keeping an eye on how he's able to handle himself physically at the SHL level this season. Staying in Sweden, we've got Malte Gustafsson at 16th overall, a left shot defenseman playing in the U20 ranks with HV71. And he's a hulking presence, a massive defenseman who's easy to project in a minute-munching role in the NHL, as he's just so punishing, who leverages his range, his mobility, and his aggressiveness to create stops in transition at a really high rate. He's incredibly difficult to beat wide in transition and is just an absolute wall on the blue line, especially in the junior level. And there's also some intriguing offensive potential as he has been experimenting a bit with activation. He has a booming shot from the point. There's elements to work with here in terms of the offensive game, but he's going to have to work on his consistency in breakouts and on retrievals, but he could really, really make a push for the top 10, especially with that profile as a very big play-killing defenseman in a class with a lot of slightly smaller high-end puck movers and maybe like play mitigators rather than killers on the blue line. At 17, we've got Nikita Klepov from the Saginaw Spirit in the OHL, a really skilled all-around forward who's able to freeze defenders, reach teammates with passes in all directions, and fire off their feeds instantly. He should fit in extremely well with the Saginaw Spirit in the OHL this season, and we're going to want to see him develop his timing and his consistency in decision-making with the puck, however, this season. At 18, we've got Cooper Williams, a really mature player from the WHL who won the top rookie forward last season with the Saskatoon Blades, and he made an instant impact with that two-way maturity and high cycle creation skill. He's a really great pickpocket on the back check. He's able to safeguard his team in the defensive zone, drop low to support his defenders, and he also is able to convert the possession steals he generates at a high level into consistent offense. He's really quick in terms of turning defense into offense, and that makes him a really interesting player at the junior level, and getting inside more often should certainly lead to more consistency in the production department here this season. At 19, we have one of the highest floor players here of the first round with Adam Novotny, a left wing from the Peterborough Petes in the OHL, who's just relentless. He's physical, really, really great in terms of the physical details and tools. He already has 50 games of professional experience under his belt in Czechia over the course of the past 2 seasons, where he really did develop that motor, the off-puck instincts, the checking skills to just thrive against men. And as he makes the jump to the OHL, we're going to look for him to take control of the shifts more often while still bringing those very elements that he's been developing that have made him so dominant in the middle of the ice. And that kind of profile should make him a really interesting first-round candidate. At number 20, we've got Oliver Savanto, a center out of Tappara in the U20 in Finland. And in a class that lacks center depth, he could really end up being a notable riser. And he was a standout at the Hlinka Gretzky tournament, where he was a meticulous two-way competitor who just always made the right side, the right reads on both sides of the puck, and he's able to dominate at the net front while also being creative, manipulative with his play as a passer. And that blend of net front physicality, ability to tip shots, score those gritty goals, but also pop out of that position and connect on a really deft playmaking pass that could set him apart from other centers in this range and really make him an exciting middle six projection down the middle of the ice. And at number 21, we've got one of the big fast risers of this class already with Nikita Sherbakov, a left shot defenseman from Topar Ufa in the MHL in Russia. And he's a big 6'5" defenseman who's going to continue developing the offensive side of his game, but he already brings so much to like on the defensive side. He made his KHL debut earlier this month and displayed really advanced defensive details and the ability to contain top players with that high-end frame and skating ability. And hey, big Russian defenders who can skate, move really fluidly, and just kill plays incessantly. There aren't enough of those in the NHL, so we love to see it. At number 22, we're sticking on the blue line with a guy that has some really big fans in our scouting group who are pushing for him as high as 15th overall. That's Albert Smits, left shot defenseman out of Jukurit in the Finnish Liga, player who's expected to play a really big role on that team and has already had a red hot start to the season in professional hockey from last spring. And he's a very active type of defenseman, and he has the skating ability to pull it off. And his style hasn't really allowed him to rack up all the points in the junior ranks just yet. He's very projectable in his defensive ability with his combination of awareness and aggressiveness. And I think that with improved handling and decision-making skill on puck, you could see him unlock more playmaking ability as well inside the offensive zone. That wraps up this second segment for us, though. In the next one, we're going to wrap up our first round, the top 32, our first top 32 at elite prospects of the season. But first, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds in front of you, the choice truly is yours with FanDuel. I'm always partial to a same-game parlay, so I'm able to combine multiple of my guesses of what's going to happen in the game as I lean back and enjoy the action in the living room. It just makes it all the more gripping and on the edge of your seat, so I love using FanDuel. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, let's wrap up the show here in the final segment, kicking things off at number 23 overall. Casey Mutrin from the NTDP with the program, and he's a very intense, projectable forechecker. Big frame, heavy body, really great physical habits and details, and he's got the violence to back it up as well. He cuts to the inside, lowers the shoulder, and has shown flashes of playmaking ability as well. And if he's able to really develop as a skilled power playmaker, provided that his skating and vision can take a step over the course of this season, he's going to be a name to watch. It could very well be the first forward off the board from the NTDP this season. At 24, we're sticking in the USHL, but we're going with the higher skill guy this time around. That's Blake Zielinski from the Des Moines Buccaneers, who has top 10 worthy skill in flashes. He's able to pick goalies apart with his shot from range. That shooting ability is his best attribute, but he's also skilled at feinting past defenders and threading pucks at teammates in the slot. He's a really versatile and adaptable offensive creator, but he is most of the time an off-puck creator who's able to also exploit some deficiencies of the USHL level in terms of lackadaisical defending and a bit of a lack of aggression as well in certain games. And that's where he does his biggest damage, is when players give him too much time and space to operate in. But if he's able to complete these plays with a bit more consistency and be more middle-driven, he could really rise up our list as a higher pace creator from the wing. At 25th overall, we have another player who gained real momentum at the Hlinka Gretzky tournament. And that's Elton Hermanson, right shot winger from the Moto Hockey Club in the U20 Nacional. And he's a guy that really, really has so much offensive skill. He's a legitimate dual threat, has a really heavy shot, great playmaking instincts. He's capable of picking corners from range and overall setting up teammates up in the slot as well. That versatility and adaptability keeps defenders on their feet and on the edge, because they don't really know what's coming with this player. while he is occasionally prone to overhandling pucks and finding his way into bad situations, he's a really good bet to turn himself into a middle six NHL contributor with all of the skill that he has at his disposal. At 26, we've got Charlie Morrison from the QMJHL and the Quebec Remparts, a left shot defenseman and a great field goal story from this class, as he went undrafted initially in the Q before going as a second round selection, and he immediately became a high impact player, bringing an aggressive shutdown defensive game alongside a creation mindset in his offensive activation, especially inside the neutral zone. The skill level is still a bit of a question mark, especially as his handling under pressure can be prone to some breakdowns, but the progression he's shown over the course of the last 6 months, 12 months, 18 months leaves us incredibly excited of where he might end this season. At 27, we've got Oscar Hemming, a left shot winger from the Kitchener Rangers in the OHL, and he shares a lot of the same qualities of his older brother, Emil Hemming, a former first-round pick of the Dallas Stars. He's a shoot-first winger with a big physical frame, but he's bigger and he skates a bit better and he has a bit of a better shot as well. Across the board, he's a bit more exciting than Emil was, at least in my opinion, from the early season takeaways here. And he's among the very youngest players in this year's draft class, so that longer runway he'll have to run into will certainly be an exciting thing to watch for here as he makes the jump to the OHL for his draft year. At 28th overall, we've got Chase Harrington from the Spokane Chiefs in the WHL, who's just set for a breakout season this year, as he has all the assets to dominate the WHL. He does a bit of everything at that level. He's able to bring real straight line speed. He's a really good shooting threat. He's able to flash some dynamic scoring while cutting to the inside, and also brings a physical edge inside contact. But he takes a ton of punishment from defenders, and he never stops working that relentlessness, the motor, the reliability to get to the dirty areas that sets him apart, and I think is going to make him a riser over the course of the season. At 29, we've got Beckham Edwards, a center from the Sarnia Sting in the OHL, who's already a very refined OHL player who times himself really well into play, catches passes in prime scoring areas, and fires them off without a moment's notice. And that quickness of execution, the lack of hesitation in his game, sets him apart at this level. He's able to dangle defenders and cut to the inside, and he could absolutely rack up the goals this season, but adding a bit more of a playmaking dimension to his game would really diversify him in the offensive zone and leave him a bit less predictable, so let's hope he's able to do that. At 30th, we've got another USHL forward here with Jack Hextall, a center of the Youngstown Phantoms, who has just moments of brilliance where he's able to catch pucks under pressure and without even looking or hesitating, relaying them cross ice to teammates in attacking openings. That combination of high-end offensive IQ, great playmaking ability, and a really good defensive game as well in the details really stands out in a draft class missing centers. He could be a massive riser over the course of this season. At 31, we've got Lars Steiner, a really hard-working player from the QMJHL and the Rouyn-Noranda Huskies. He's an undersized right-shot winger, but he's never physically outmatched. He has all the skills to build as a smaller winger at the pro level, and opponents can just bounce off of him. He's so solid on his feet, really difficult to play against. He gets to the middle of the ice. He's able to score well off the catch with a really good kind of catch-and-release shot, and he's a good play supporter as well in terms of adopting really good link-up positions in transition to not leave puck carriers isolated. And he's a cunning passer when he does get the puck as well in playmaking areas. So the tools are all there for a dominant campaign in the Q this season, but adding a bit more dynamism and play driving should be the next step for this player. Last but certainly not least, we've got Viktor Fyodorov, a center from Chaika Nizhny Novgorod in the MHL and Russian junior hockey, and he understands the game at a really good level. Our Russia scout Dylan Griffin really likes his ability to rotate to the right spots in the offensive zone, linking plays between his teammates and keeping control of the puck. He's a real possession extender, and you need players like this in your lineup. Even though he's a bit on the smaller side, he does get engaged physically. He's able to protect pucks in difficult areas, and we see him as a guy that with a bit more speed and playmaking skill could really entrench himself inside the first round. But that wraps up this episode here for us today, and I pass the question on to you. Who are you most excited about in this draft class? Is it going to be the easy answer with Gavin McKenna, or are you going for a bit of a deeper cut? I'd love to hear from your thoughts in the comments down below, as well as what you think about these first rankings of the season. What do you like? What do you dislike? Do you have any opinions whatsoever? I'd love to hear from your opinions down below, but that is it. That is all. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Sebastian High, and I'll catch you tuning in again very, very soon.